Okay, so it seems like there's been a little bit of a situation going on with the VTuber Anny. Now, we've talked about Anny obviously a little bit. She's been on hiatus recently, and well, it seems like she's actually opened up about a lot of things to do with the past couple of months or up to years now, obviously, of her being away. And now, obviously, people are very concerned. And I think it's becoming more and more apparent exactly what happened and some of the harassment that she's actually been facing online, which is obviously never great to see for anybody. Now, this first clip obviously came from Neurocrumbs, which clipped quite a lot of Annie stuff and also Neuro Sama stuff as well. And obviously she talks about a break in silence about Vedal and Neuro and leaving the Neuroverse because she left obviously the space. And a lot of people have been asking her obviously where she's been, why this happened, and things like that. And essentially, she started talking about a lot of things, but there was a really good comment down here, which gives us a really good summary of essentially what this clip is about. She says that apparently that Annie developed feelings for Vedal, which were not returned, and this obviously wasn't a really great thing to have, especially working on projects. I think you guys know that if you work on any project or even just like work, this is why a lot of people, whenever it comes to work, don't have relationships with their work kind of partners and things, because obviously it can cause some issues. Right, so it's partially because of that, and obviously she backed away from the Neuro project for her own mental health, and the deadlines were missed because she could not operate professionally in the environment. Shippers and parasocial online made her feel like she was pressured to return, which worsened her mental state. And now on the other side of that emotional storm, she is cutting business ties with the Neuro project, and she wishes nothing but the success, but she'll be no longer working with Vedal or the twins for the foreseeable future. So yeah, it seems like Annie will not be working with them in any kind of capacity, and it's pretty shocking obviously to a lot of people to see that she was developing feelings and stuff for Vedal, and it's kind of shocking that she would obviously go and say that over on stream, which again I think transparency is great, so I'm glad that she did. And obviously she says it happened quite a while ago, so she feels like she's comfortable, she's been through it all, and to talk about it, right, which I do think is obviously very, very interesting. And obviously she goes on to talk about as well the fact that she was getting a lot of kind of harassment and hate during her kind of hiatus and things, obviously because a lot of people were worried about where she was, but she also goes on to talk about stuff like she took a break to heal in peace and avoided constant questions and harassment, but obviously all of this nagging and questioning soon built up about her kind of like relationship with Neuro and with also Vedal and everyone like that. And yeah, they go on to say that her mental health was kind of shattered from other stuff as well from the previous year, and that her motivation was kind of fading a little bit. She also talks about some other stuff as well, some toxic past and stuff stemming from childhood, but again, obviously, it just seems like she's been pretty troubled over the past couple of months. And we have talked a little bit about, that she has been pretty troubled, which I do think is pretty interesting. But again, I do think that it's her stepping away from the project is honestly the best move for her, just because, obviously, as I said, usually whenever you catch feelings for people that are kind of involved in a project that you are a part of, it sometimes doesn't end up the best. And I think that also, as she says, her mental was kind of shattered from that anyways. And yeah, I think that, slowly but surely she's getting back into this space. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that have been clipping and kind of, harassing and just kind of creating a lot of content surrounding her and Neuro. And I think this is why she actually went onto stream in the first place, to kind of address that and be like, hey guys, let's just stop doing this, because again, it's been a while and we don't need to constantly be talking about Neuro and Vedal all the time. Obviously, they have worked together, so it's pretty common for it to come up in conversation, but sometimes it comes up a little bit too much, and especially a lot of the intrusive questions about relationships and stuff like that obviously gets a little bit too much. And now we have clarity on exactly what that is. Not that I care, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys don't really care what kind of relationship status a VTuber is in. Let's be real, it is none of our business to really know any of that. But obviously there's been a lot of people kind of nagging, and I can understand why she felt like she kind of needed to talk about it, because again, it can be hard. Obviously there's a lot of people leaving comments, leaving chat messages, and I think that honestly, it's a difficult time for some people. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the comments have been very supportive of Annie. People saying, the amount of people blaming Vedal is insane, get a grip. And obviously, this is 100% not Vedal's fault. It isn't. Obviously, it is a kind of Annie thing where she obviously developed that in her mind, that she had, kind of feelings for him, right? But at the same time, it's neither of their fault. It's just something that happens sometimes, and it sucks. But obviously, she's taken the best course of action there, really. And yeah, Vedal isn't to be blamed at all. He didn't do anything in this. Obviously, they were just working together. So again, I can understand, why some people will be supporting both of them still. Again, there is no bad guy here. They are both good, and I think they are both obviously just moving their separate ways. And she even obviously wishes the best to the Neuro kind of project and to the twins, as I said earlier, which I do think is a very important part, because again, it's just one of these things, right? Not everything has to be drama, not everything has to be crazy. Obviously, yes, she has been facing a lot of harassment and stuff during hiatus, which again, obviously is terrible and should never happen to anybody. But again, it is one of these things where hopefully with this kind of clarification on stream, some people will obviously kind of back down and not really type any of this anymore. Obviously, people saying I generally hope people don't attack or villainize Vedal, because he didn't reciprocate Annie's feelings. He had no obligation to reciprocate the aforementioned feelings. 100% true. People saying, I think people need to understand how much this also sucks for Vedal, which is 100% true as well. Said, yes, he isn't the one that got rejected, but it must be extraordinarily awkward to have a friend to have feelings for you that you do not reciprocate. Yet it gets thrown into your guys' faces all the time, and you don't want to hurt them. Which again, I'm sure you guys have always been in a situation, in a relationship or something similar to this, right? Where, one of them doesn't reciprocate it, or maybe, you do, and it just doesn't really work out, right? And obviously, it's bad, first of all, right? But whenever you add stuff like clippers, commenters, chatters into the mix of things, it gets like a million times worse, right? Because people are constantly asking about you and Vedal, or I say you and Vedal, like you get what I mean, you and the person, and that's something that a lot of people in the usual world don't really have to deal with. They don't have to deal with people asking them about it whenever things are a little bit complicated, right? But this time, obviously, it does get to people because there's people clipping it, there's people chatting, there's people commenting, and obviously that can get to both of them. And it's slightly different from what you'd really consider in like a regular kind of relationship, friendship kind of status, which I do think obviously adds a extra layer as to why a lot of it got too much for her. But obviously, as I mentioned before, a lot of the harassment and about the hiatus and stuff also wasn't just the main kind of thing behind the hiatus. It was also things like previous kind of mental stuff which she was dealing with, which obviously is very understandable, and we can all kind of support her in that. Now, obviously, as you guys have probably seen from my kind of videos and stuff, she is back streaming. She is back doing her thing, and hopefully you guys can go and support her. And obviously, don't bring up Vedal or Neuro unless obviously she brings them up in the first place, because again, it does get a little bit weird. It's a little bit awkward, and I think it's just best for the both of them, because again, it's not just Anny that you're supporting here, it's also Vedal, because any kind of mention of it is awkward for the both of them. And obviously a lot of people were just saying, sad state of affairs, which could have been a million times worse, which again could be true. There's been situations where things have been handled way worse than that, but again, I do think obviously there is a good kind of ending to this, and just hopefully, well, I say a good ending, maybe not so good in terms of the fan kind of reaction to it, but good in terms of how the two have dealt with it, and hopefully they can just move on with that kind of stuff, because it's pretty personal stuff, and it's kind of sad to see that it's gotten to this point where she had to mention it on stream and kind of talk about it. But again, hopefully this does obviously stop them from kind of doing this stuff, and essentially kind of continuing this. But if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Sorry about this scuff setup, by the way, if there's a little bit of an echo or whatever, because again, I am recording this away from home. So again, I hope this is okay, and this video has been enjoyable for you, because I'm trying to still release a few videos here and there, because again, there's been some pretty big topics going on, and I will just be covering the big topics when I'm away. I'm only away for another like 5 days or so, if that. So again, regular content, 3 videos a day, should be back by the end of the week, or next week, sorry, which I did mention over in my community. But if you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, go to GameSubs, use my code Kazza, get 10% off again. We've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.